to me or put it on a blog or a Facebook post somewhere, and they ask, hey, I've got these symptoms. Is it from my fibromyalgia or is it from my other disease, whatever that other disease is? And maybe it's arthritis or depression or some kind of neurologic disease. And that similar question's coming up a lot lately in the context of post-COVID. And people are asking, and they're coming to my office, a lot of my recent consults, people coming to my door are saying, look, I had fibromyalgia and then I either got COVID or I got a COVID vaccine, and then subsequently my fibromyalgia seems a lot worse. What's going on? Is this post-COVID? Is it fibromyalgia? And it makes sense to ask that, but it's really probably the wrong question to ask. And in this video, I'm going to talk with you about what is the right question to ask, why that's the wrong question to ask, and the whole idea is so you can get directed in the right direction to do something about it, so you can feel better and not be suffering so much. So the key thing to know is this, that fibromyalgia is not a typical disease where we've got one cause and here's a disease and here's one treatment, and you probably know that, and that's why so many people continue to suffer despite getting the best medical care. And what's going on in fibromyalgia is that there's a number of underlying biological dysfunctions, things that are going on in your biological systems that are interacting with each other in kind of a set of vicious cycles that can kind of snowball over time. And those things include imbalance of the autonomic nervous system, dysbiosis and leaky gut and systemic inflammation, sometimes autoimmunity, and hormonal abnormalities, insomnia, non-restorative sleep, and then frequently what we call mitochondrial dysfunction. And the mitochondria are your cellular organs that produce energy and that are involved in regulating so many biological processes. Mitochondria are kind of the focal point for your cell's ability to sense danger, whether it's biochemical inside of you or something external to you. And a lot of the things I just mentioned about fibro are part of what is either going on in post-COVID or suspected of what's going on in post-COVID. The main candidates in the medical literature these days about what's causing post-COVID syndrome are similar. And just in case you're not tuned into it, post-COVID is a problem that exists in many people. And you don't even have to get really sick with COVID. People who have mild COVID can develop post-COVID syndrome, and they can have some combination of fatigue, pain, brain fog, difficulty thinking, problems with their consciousness, sometimes digestive problems. Does that sound similar? It's a lot like fibromyalgia. So it's part of why people are asking this question. But when we look at the literature and the science coming out now in the past couple of years, looking at post-COVID and saying what's causing this, the things that they're seeing include dysbiosis of the gut, systemic immune imbalance and sometimes autoimmunity. Sometimes there's inflammation in certain tissues that have been damaged by the virus itself. There is significant mitochondrial dysfunction. And for many people, there is also what we call microthrombi, or kind of a micro disease of the blood vessels that can affect any organ and can cause a lot of problems. So there's differences. It's not to say that these are the same thing, but that between fibromyalgia and post-COVID and also chronic fatigue syndrome, there are these similar underlying physiologic imbalances and abnormalities. And so to ask the question of, well, what's causing my symptoms? What do I need to treat? Should I treat the fibro? Should I treat the post-COVID? Should I treat the chronic fatigue? Well, that question is not really relevant, because according to the model of looking for what's the diagnosis and what's the treatment, none of those things have treatments. But the underlying biology that seems to be driving these things do have treatments. There's ways we can address the underlying biology. A lot of us who are busy and in the world of functional care for people with chronic syndromes like chronic fatigue and fibro are actually looking forward to what's going to come out of all the attention that's being given to post-COVID. It's a little bit puzzling, like, okay, well, why didn't you do this research for fibromyalgia and for chronic fatigue? And I think part of the issue is that it's harder to diagnose the initial triggering event because it can be so complex. in issues like fibro and post-COVID, in fibro and chronic fatigue, because so many different things can trigger it and start the cycle that develops these underlying biological imbalances. And so with post-COVID, it's more discrete. I had COVID, I got sick, here are my symptoms. And they're starting to think about that in more of a, it just fits into the medical scientific mind a little bit better, so they can do research more effectively and probably get funding more effectively. But what the hope is that we're going to just understand a lot more in general about these underlying biological imbalances that are associated with this whole set of symptoms that includes fatigue and brain fog and other cognitive symptoms and chronic pain and digestive symptoms and a whole host of other issues. And so, I'm very involved in researching this stuff and understanding it and bringing whatever is the best possible treatments to it to help my patients. The bottom line that you should know is that it's important to go after the underlying biological imbalances, whether it's the gastrointestinal dysbiosis, leaky gut, food sensitivity aspect of it, mitochondrial dysfunction, hormonal imbalance, sleep disturbance, immune imbalance. All of those things are part of what drives your symptoms. And each of those are things that each one has a world into itself to try to deal with. So I hope this has been interesting to you. What we talked about is why it's not so important to ask the question of, is it my fibro, or is it my chronic fatigue, or is it my post-COVID? The question is really, what are the biological imbalances that are most important and relevant in your case? And that comes from a really deep, clear history, as well as looking at the current symptoms that you're having to understand what's underlying this for you and what can we do to reverse those changes. If you're wanting to get more information about this kind of stuff, I encourage you to join my email community. You can do that by going to drschillerlearn.com. That URL or that link will be in the comments below this video. So, and if you're wanting to help other people with chronic pain and chronic illness, I encourage you to share this video and share this post with people, and shoot me an email, shoot me a PM, whatever it is. Let me know what's on your mind. I'm here to be of service. Wishing you well. Take care.